Gregory. Gregory's Gregory the Great coming out of Louisiana. And Gregory, you want to know, how do you view loving God? I want to know how you view loving God first, and then we will share our views of that.
Well, my question is, it's more so an argument that I've been studying and hearing from the
Okay,
atheist point of view, and
for sure.
typically it is if God is loving, how could He cause someone to burn forever?
Yeah, that's come up a
And
bit. Yeah.
I'm trying to see if, and it's probably not like a exclusive thing. Far be it for me to say that I, have the answer, because I don't want to come off that way when I share this at all.
Good.
But if assuming just for a bit that Yahweh, the biblical God, was real,
Mhm.
if He created everything, then He has an intrinsic right to do with it as He wills.
Ooh.
Even if Yahweh has the right, being the creator, he has no business just doing whatever he fucking wants with his creation, if that creation is a life form. Obviously, God has no superior to answer to, and authority to grant him whatever rights, the same way we do. So he can't be told what he's allowed to do or not to. The problem is that many people permit God and grant him the right to do whatever he wants. The usual reason being because he's God. While that's while that's only an appeal to existence which can't and logically doesn't determine character, on the same token that no mortal man has the right to tell God what he's not allowed to do. Mortal man has no business even dictating what Yahweh is allowed to do. Obviously, nobody can stop God, but inflicting harm onto live creations is sick, while consent is the core issue here. That can't be love because that's causing suffering, and God does not have the right because the creation was non-consensual. God being the creator and nobody existing or being able to stop God also does not grant God the right. This simply means God is a sadist. The bottom line of the matter is that God's worshippers approve of this God being the ruthless fucking dictator that he is. We can't do anything about Yahweh if this creator God is real. So it boils down to how people feel about this God and them worshipping this God, let alone giving approval and agreement, is sick and them as bad as God. I would say God doesn't have the right, not if he's going to create living agency against its will, and if he's going to impose authority onto that life. You don't agree? Who the fuck asked you, and who are you to say? It's my life. Of course, Christians being the ones to argue that God has the right in defense of his bullshit, you have no right to tell us what rights God has, let alone that God has the right to do anything to us. God isn't the one arguing, you are.
So if He created everything, does that make sense?
Yeah, I've heard this before.
Yeah, go ahead. Follow through with your
Yeah.
thought, Gregory. Just
Uh,
follow that through, and then we'll
Okay.
respond to it.
yeah.
Because Johnny's getting sick in his
Okay.
mouth right now.
Yeah.
So
Go on. Yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. If He created everything as the inventor, so to speak, of everything, then He does have a right to do as He wills. So
Based on what? Your consent? You are speaking for everyone, Gregory? Fuck you, cocksucker. You know, that's weaponized talk right there. That's equal to violence, enabling a creator who's also a killer.
I know sometimes as humans we have our own free will, so we project what we perceive love to be, or we can
Yeah,
project
we know.
on God.
That's
How-
well fucking known. I would ask here why we need free will if God is powerful, but God destroying is the subject matter. How is free will relevant to the notion that, quote, God has the right to destroy? What would be the point of having free will if God destroys?
His love should be, towards us. So I'm just trying to understand the argument, or why often does the argument go to, well, if God is loving, why does he cast beings into hell? I'm trying to understand why that's like, why I hear that be the default position when in fact he would be the creator of everything. As
Okay.
if I had a computer that I really, really liked, you know, and I know we don't like to define ourselves as computer, but if I had a computer that I really, really liked and it started getting to a point where it seemingly was beyond repair, I'd be able to throw it away. I still would love that computer. Like, man, I wish I could fix it. But the method that
He's trying to understand why being cast into hell is loving, being the default position, God being the creator. I can't do anything with that because it made no sense to me. The absolute problem here is that a laptop is not alive, and the brands creating them are not powerful gods. Venething X argued this years ago. The reality also is that we cannot create anything that will last forever. Also, as Dave mentions here, nobody ever tortures any products we ever create for disobedience, which God does according to Christianity. In fact, we look at any given item and figure out what the problem is and repair it. If it can't be, we can only dispose of it. Does God also have that protocol? No? Why not? Of course, God could make us all immortal and invincible, but he just doesn't, while God also didn't create Adam and Eve with their consent. People not having the right doesn't stop the dishonest and mentally ill people from doing something harmful to others. What's God's excuse? His own being? No, that's only an existential appeal. Even if destroying life is a form of love, that simply means love is bad. Love is what condemned me to this fucking existence. And I don't want to be loved if that emotion causes such problems and means such suffering. This also means I won't love anyone, although I'd still want to destroy God, or at least just reject him.
Just throwing that out there.
Go into the fact that according to Christianity,
For me by this divine creator is unacceptable. It might be perfectly fine for a God that doesn't really feel pleasure or pain because he exists outside of time. But as a limited being, I am being subjected to essentially a gun to my head. Either believe, or obey, or you will be tortured forever. I think it's fair for me to say, by the standards of human justice, that I can think that that's bullshit. This is independent of whether or not that actually exists, but I think it's acceptable.
No, God is
Yet
allowed to do that
all-loving
because
God,
he's
by human
God,
standards,
remember?
does not do this to its creation. Therefore, either that doesn't happen or there is no such thing as the all-loving God.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna respond to that. I think
God is incapable of
Christians who
evil, although
play
he
that
created
card,
a tree that produces
that
fruit that
God created
causes
us
knowledge,
to
which
do
is
whatever he
supposedly
wants with his
evil.
creation. And if he wants
Something
to
like
torture
that.
them and throw them into hell or punish them in some way that we don't understand, then we're just clearly, which I can't say clearly, not understanding God's love. We have a warped definition of love, and who.
Well, incomprehension doesn't make it moral or loving either. That only means we can't understand it. How can eternal torment as punishment for whatever be moral or loving if A, it's so undesirable that hell is feared, and B, we need to be saved from it?
Who are we, the creation? We're the vessel. He's the potter. And who are we to question how he made us and what love looks like? We clearly don't understand love. Christians can't have it both ways. Either that's true, to make a bowl and then break it and ground it to powder. How dare us question his omnipotence, his magnificence, all that bullshit. Either it's that or it's the other, but you can't have both.
Well, the problem
Make up
is
your
God
mind,
isn't the one
Christians.
bothered by
Make
it.
up
The
your mind.
Christians are.
Yeah.
How dare
do
you
you think,
question
I
God?
think we can have, yeah, I think
God
we
doesn't.
can have
God's
both.
not
I
here,
think
so he's not
someone
saying, "Well,
can
how
be-
dare you question me?"
For lack of a better word, I just kind of saw you guys, so I quickly hopped in. I think you can have someone who's superior and has the final decision making, and he still can choose to do what he wants to do, because we have to.
And
look
why
at
do you
it
want him to choose
from the
whatever he
view
wants to do?
outside. I understand we're human, so we only have the human experience.
Why do you want or approve of God being so destructive? And who are you to speak for the rest of the fucking world? Such arrogance. The person who believes that he's broken and needs to be saved through God's forgiveness and repent his sin is the fucking arrogant one, telling us how it fucking is.
So to speak, to define love by. But if he is the superior being who is outside of time, who can, as you said, make a bowl and break it, then you can have both.
Well, what if those things he does are cruel?
What if the things he does are cruel?
What if he can do whatever he wants? So he can
Like you didn't
ground
understand
us
that
to powder
question.
if he wants to. If he's having a bad day, like he did with the flood, and he wants to drown everybody, he can do whatever he wants. It's his creation. But those babies
Right.
drown. Those
But that-
pregnant women drown.
Yes,
This pro-life God drowned pregnant women. So how does that make sense with the emotional framework that he supposedly created us with?
I think
It's
that's where
it's
it comes to.
incongruent. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I think that's what it comes to, of his superiority. That God, and I'm trying to speak in a way where I really want to understand that side of the argument.
How is unjustified murder superior? I feel I'm morally superior to all Christians. Does that mean I'm right to eliminate all Christians? And Muslims for that matter? No, that would probably be persecution, right?
Not in a way of
Okay.
conversion or anything. That's
Greg-
what. So I hope I'm not.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
they say. That's William Lane Craig's argument, that whatever God does, if we look at slavery as immoral, if we look at genocide as immoral, it's not immoral if God commands it. That's
Yeah.
his argument. That's the end of the conversation. If God says it, that settles it.
What does our perception of God's ill treatment, even severely, make us, while it's supposedly loving on God's part?
And we can look
Yeah.
at that as with the human emotions that God supposedly gave us. We can look at that. Any rational person can look at that and say, no, that's immoral. It's immoral to own another person. Well, you can't have the morals that God supposedly put in us.
Yeah.
The choice. You get what I'm
You can't
saying?
do that.
That's not.
Can't do that with
I don't
God.
think- I don't.
Because
Huh?
he's got it. You can't do that with God because God, according to the Christian.
Well, you can, but he'll punish you for
yeah,
that.
you can, but you're going to burn in hell.
Right, and
Right.
but that's what I'm saying. That's the important part of. I think it's kind of used as a throwaway point because humans are naturally, and of course this is according to my belief, humans are naturally given to want to do what they want to do. But you can do it.
How is that wrong?
In the same way, I think you brought.
As
up
long
my
as they're not
child.
hurting
My
anybody.
child can do what they want to do, but in my household, or when I grew up, I got my butt whooped. That's just
Right.
part of my parents being able to be my parents and me still being able to make the choice.
So nothing is ever to be done about parental abuse? It's a choice and that's final? Whose choice? What makes it final? Says who? Much like the laptop analogy though, parents are not powerful gods. Invalid argument.
I can go all the way, I can go all the way or balls to the wall, as they say. I can go all the way to the left, but ultimately that consequence is there, and that consequence as if they've discovered all of him. So I do understand that, and even as a Christian, I hate that the result is that somebody would go to hell, anybody, But I do believe that if he's the creator of
Okay.
everything, there's nothing I could do about it because he is that creator. He is.
But yet, you are a Christian. You enable the God who does this. How can you hate hell but worship the God who created it? No, there isn't anything you can do about it, but you can reject God's word and abstain from reproduction. You're stupid to say that you don't like people being tortured forever and that you know nothing can be done about God, while being a Christian and claiming that God is the fucking right. You are a fucking psycho, Greg.
Is that inventor of everything, so he does have a right to do
So
with
you're
it as he wishes.
So you're
So
a
if he
prisoner.
wants to be if he wants to be the bully, or if he is the bully that Johnny described, and there's nothing we can do about it, are you willing to worship and
Who gave God the right? What about consent?
follow that kind of a figure?
Out of love?
I would say yes.
Fear of eternal
this is-
punishment is dangling right in front of you. Can you really say that you love him for his qualities and not out of fear of torture forever?
I'm not saying that because I'm stumped. I don't know how much time we got because in that.
Well, we're about out of time. We
worldview-
do have to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, in the
Go ahead.
Christian worldview, it would be more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
More nuanced than loving and worshipping out of fear? Really? Way to evade the fucking question aside from bringing the amount of time that they have left into it. What a fucking disingenuous prick.